My mom always called me the dumb one, and swore she'd make sure I never proved her wrong. Every word cut deep, but instead of breaking me, it lit a fire. She thought she'd hold me back forever. She had no idea how badly her plan was about to fail. My own mother assigned each of her children a suffocating identity at birth, a role we were never allowed to escape. But what she did to try and permanently alter my brain, to stop me from ever thinking for myself, that's where the true horror begins. From the moment we were born, my mother decided our entire lives. Natalie was the smart one, Eden the pretty one, Miles the strong one, and me? I was the dumb one. She didn't just label us. She enforced these roles with a twisted cruelty she called maintaining the family ecosystem. It was chilling. These labels, given minutes after we took our first breaths, were based on her bizarre first impressions. Natalie was quiet and observant, smart. Eden had delicate features, pretty. Miles was a large baby who cried loudly, strong. And I, born last and smallest, struggling to breathe? Mom declared that meant I was dumb. She even wrote these roles on our birth certificates like they were actual medical conditions. My father, he couldn't take it. He left when he realized she was dead serious about this deranged system. Couldn't bear to watch what she was doing to us. Mom, of course, took his departure as proof her system worked better without him. The punishments were brutal. When Natalie, the smart one, struggled with a math problem, Mom would solve it for her. Then if I, the dumb one, dared to try and help, she'd beat me. Because dumb children don't understand mathematics, right? When I grew taller than Eden, the pretty one, Mom forced me to hunch constantly until my spine literally curved. The dumb one couldn't also be tall. She yanked me out of school after 3rd grade, claiming I was too stupid to learn. But the truth? She'd panic because I'd started reading above grade level. Miles, the strong one, wasn't allowed to cry, not even with broken bones, because the strong one doesn't feel pain. When Eden gained normal teenage weight, Mom put her on extreme diets until she fainted daily. The pretty one had to stay thin no matter what. It only got worse as we got older, as we inevitably started showing talents that didn't match her labels. Eden, with athletic talent, was fed pills that made her hair fall out. Pretty girls don't sweat. Miles was forced to lift weights from age 6, until his joints were practically destroyed. She made sure he'd need a cane by 20. When Natalie showed artistic talent, Mom burned her paintings right in front of her. But I got it the worst. Intelligence was harder to destroy than beauty or strength. Mom made me take pills that left me dizzy and confused, telling everyone they were for my severe learning disability, a disability I absolutely did not have. In this nightmare, my siblings and I became each other's secret protectors. Natalie would secretly teach me from her textbooks after midnight, risking Mom's explosive rage if we were caught. Eden would steal my pills, swapping them out with vitamins whenever she could. Miles would pretend to chase me away from his weights, but actually help me exercise in secret. We developed a whole coded language just to communicate without Mom noticing. We were prisoners together, each dealing with our own curse while trying desperately to help the others with theirs. Our first attempt at escape was on my 15th birthday. Miles had saved money from odd jobs, and we planned to run away together. But Mom had planted trackers in our phones. She caught us at the train station. Her punishment was beyond brutal. Miles had to carry 100-pound bags everywhere until his back gave out. Natalie had to solve equations for 16 hours straight until she collapsed. Eden had to stare in mirrors, listing her flaws for days. And me? I had to write, "I am too stupid to think for myself," 10,000 times. After that, she moved us to an isolated farmhouse and told everyone we died in a fire. We were completely cut off. 3 agonizing years later, I found online courses and started secretly studying. Mom thought I was looking at picture books. My siblings became master conspirators, creating elaborate distractions so I could learn. Natalie would fake academic crises, demanding Mom's full attention. Eden would have beauty emergencies that took hours to fix. Miles would pretend to hurt himself, requiring Mom's constant care. Thanks to them, I finished my GED and applied to colleges using a library computer, sneaking out whenever I could. When my acceptance letter from the state university arrived at our P.O. box, Miles grabbed it. We all cried together in the barn, a silent symphony of hope and fear. We planned my escape for months. The night I left, Natalie faked a seizure, claiming she'd overtaxed her brilliant mind. Eden smashed a mirror, threatening to destroy her face. Amidst the chaos, Miles smuggled me out in his truck and drove me to campus. For one amazing week, I lived in a dorm. I went to classes like a normal person. I picked my own clothes. I talked in class. I made friends who knew me as just Leia. Then the phone rang. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Mom's voice was eerily calm. The school called about your medical records. I've already withdrawn you. Miles is bringing you home. I turned around and there he was, Miles, standing in my doorway looking absolutely sick with guilt. Behind him, Mom stood holding a medical bag. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice cracking. She'd threatened to blind Eden and break Natalie's hands if he didn't cooperate. Mom smiled, her eyes cold as she prepared a syringe. You've upset the whole ecosystem by trying to be smart, she purred, walking towards me. We need to fix that overactive brain permanently. Dr. Benson is meeting us at the house. He does special lobotomies that target specific parts of the brain. As Miles grabbed my arms and Mom raised the needle, she said the words that still haunt me. Don't worry, sweetie. You won't even remember wanting to be anything, but dumb once we're done scooping out the problem areas. The needle moved closer, and I watched the clear liquid inside while Miles's grip tightened around my arms. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode as the metal point touched my skin. Bang! A furious banging started on my dorm door, loud enough to shake the entire frame. Mom jerked the needle back, shoving it into her medical bag just as the door flew open. Campus security officer Kia Nash rushed in, hand on her radio, looking at all three of us frozen in these bizarre positions. Miles still had my arms pinned, and Mom was zipping her bag shut, trying to look normal. Nash stepped between us, pulling Miles's hands off me, then moved me behind her towards the door. My whole body shook so violently I could barely stand, my teeth chattering like I was freezing. Mom immediately launched into her calm doctor voice, claiming she was worried about my mental health, that I needed help, that I'd been having episodes and making up stories about the family. Nash, though, wasn't buying it. She looked at the angry red marks on my arms where Miles had grabbed me, then at Mom's medical bag on my desk. I tried to talk, but my voice came out all broken and weird from the shaking. Nash asked me what was in the bag, and I managed to choke out the word syringe between chattering teeth. Mom insisted it was just medication for my condition, but Nash called for backup on her radio, blocking the doorway. Mom tried to push past, but Nash stood her ground. 2 more security guards showed up, and Nash told them to watch Mom and Miles while she spoke to me. I told her everything about the needle, the lobotomy threat, the years of pills. The words tumbled out, mixed up and panicked. Nash's face went from concern to horrified as she called for an ambulance. It felt like forever, but the EMTs arrived in about 10 minutes. They checked me over, finding the tiny red mark where the needle had touched my skin. They loaded me into the ambulance while Nash told Mom and Miles they'd need to come to the station for questioning. At the emergency room, Dr. Leora Camera examined the injection site, taking pictures. She measured the red marks on my arms, documenting everything. She ordered blood tests immediately. A nurse drew what felt like 20 tubes of blood while Dr. Camera asked me questions. I told her about the pills Mom had been making me take for years, the ones that made me dizzy and confused. Dr. Camera's face grew more worried as I explained about the fake learning disability. She ordered more tests, including hair samples that could show drug exposure going back months. The nurse cut small pieces of my hair, sealing them in evidence bags. They made me pee in a cup too and took swabs from inside my mouth. Dr. Camera promised they'd run every test possible to find out what Mom had been giving me. I spent the whole night in the hospital, getting tests and scans, including a brain scan to check for any long-term damage from the drugging. The next morning, a woman named Leandra Magkire from the university came to see me. She was a case manager and she had a thick folder of papers. She explained that the registrar's office had found the documents Mom used to withdraw me. Papers claiming I had severe cognitive impairment and couldn't function academically. Leandra said the documents were clearly forged. I'd been attending classes just fine for a week. She helped me fill out a FERPA block to stop Mom from accessing any of my school records. We spent an hour going through forms for campus safety, and Leandra started the paperwork for a no-contact order, banning Mom from campus. She said it would take a few days, but campus security already had Mom's picture. I used my phone to text my siblings our old code word. Are you okay? Eden texted back immediately. Mom was home, screaming at everyone about how I'd ruined everything. She was on the phone with lawyers trying to file for guardianship over me, claiming I was mentally incompetent. Eden warned me that Mom had already called 3 different doctors, trying to get them to sign papers about my supposed disability. Leandra called someone from legal aid, and within an hour, an attorney named Lana Felt showed up. She was young but sharp, taking notes on everything I told her. She said we needed to document every single thing to fight the guardianship attempt. She had me write down everything I could remember about the pills and the abuse. We made lists of all the times Mom had hurt us for being good at the wrong things. Lana said my college acceptance and grades would prove I wasn't mentally impaired. That afternoon, Detective Lucinda Bridges came to take my official statement. She had me go through everything step by step, recording it. She asked about the long-term pattern of abuse, and I told her about the roles Mom assigned us. She wanted proof. I remembered the birth certificates Miles had mentioned once, where Mom had written our assigned roles. Detective Bridges wrote that down, promising to look into getting copies from the county records office. I spent the next 2 days pulling together every scrap of evidence I had. My GED certificate hidden in the barn, printouts of my college acceptance letter from the library computer, screenshots of every text my siblings had sent me over the years about Mom's actions. Lana sat with me in the hospital cafeteria, sorting through it all, making copies, organizing it into folders labeled educational competence, pattern of abuse, and medical evidence. She kept shaking her head at some of the messages, especially the ones where Eden described being forced to throw up after eating normal meals, or Natalie talking about having to pretend she couldn't understand basic concepts around Mom. The financial aid office called while we were working. A confused woman explaining my funding was frozen because Mom had contacted them, claiming I was mentally incompetent to manage money. Leandra met me there the next morning. We sat in those uncomfortable plastic chairs while she filled out dependency override paperwork, explaining the situation and showing the financial aid director the police report. He said it would take weeks to process but promised to expedite it. Mom started sending emails to my school account that afternoon, long rambling messages about how I was destroying the family ecosystem, how the dumb one accepting their place was essential for everyone's well-being. She wrote about how Natalie's intelligence would suffer without contrast, how Eden's beauty meant nothing if everyone was equal, how Miles's strength came from protecting the weak one. Lana told me to save every single email but not to respond. She said these messages were perfect evidence of Mom's abusive mindset and would help our case. I forwarded them to a separate folder, trying not to read them too closely because they made my hands shake. 3 days later, Dr. Camera called with the blood test results. Her voice was careful as she explained they'd found traces of sedatives in my system, consistent with long-term exposure, a type commonly used to treat severe anxiety, but that would cause confusion and cognitive impairment in someone who didn't need them. She was ordering hair follicle testing, which could show drug exposure going back months or even years. She said this evidence could be crucial for criminal charges against Mom for poisoning or assault. That same evening, Miles called me, sobbing so hard I could barely understand him. He kept saying, "I'm sorry," over and over, before finally getting out that Mom was making him choose between helping her bring me home, or letting her hurt Eden and Natalie worse than ever before. His voice cracked as he told me she'd hired someone, some guy who finds people who don't want to be found, and this person was already tracking my location through my phone or computer. I could hear Mom in the background, telling him to stop being weak, that the strong one doesn't cry over necessary discipline. Detective Bridges scheduled a meeting for the next day to discuss a restraining order. Between the assault attempt in my dorm, the stalking behavior with the tracker, and the documented pattern of abuse, she said we should have enough for at least a temporary protective order. We met at the police station, where she had me fill out more forms, describing every incident I could remember of Mom hurting me, threatening me, or controlling my life. 3 days later, we went to the courthouse for the temporary restraining order hearing. Of course, Mom showed up looking perfectly put together in a navy suit, her hair pulled back. She told the judge in this calm, reasonable voice that I was delusional, that I'd always had mental problems requiring constant supervision. But then the judge looked at the medical evidence Dr. Camera had sent, read through the emails Mom had sent me about the ecosystem, saw the photos Officer Nash had taken of the marks on my arms from the dorm incident, and his face got harder and harder. He granted a 2-year temporary restraining order and scheduled a hearing for a permanent one, warning Mom that any contact with me would result in arrest. Within hours of leaving the courthouse, Mom started using other people to contact me. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly messaged me about how I was breaking Mom's heart. Old family friends called the dorm phone to tell me I was being selfish, destroying my family. Lana documented every single contact as a violation of the spirit, if not the letter, of the restraining order, building our case that Mom couldn't respect boundaries even with legal consequences hanging over her head. Then someone posted my dorm address online on some forum about problem children who abandon their families, claiming I was a dangerous, mentally ill person who'd left my poor mother to deal with my siblings alone after years of sacrifice. Campus IT helped me document the doxing, taking screenshots and tracing IP addresses, while security started doing extra patrols near my building and checking IDs. The university issued an official no trespass order against Mom the next day, after the doxing incident, with Officer Nash personally driving out to deliver it to Mom at the farmhouse, warning her that any appearance on campus would result in immediate arrest and prosecution for criminal trespass. 2 days later, I found a small package stuffed into my mailbox. Inside was a thumb drive with a sticky note in Miles's handwriting that simply said, "Evidence." I plugged it into my laptop, and there they were. Scanned copies of all 4 of our birth certificates. My hands started shaking when I saw what Mom had written on each one. Right there, in the official boxes for medical conditions, she'd written our assigned roles in her perfect cursive. Natalie said, "Smart 1, exceptional cognitive function." Eden said, "Pretty 1, aesthetic priority." Miles's said, "Strong 1, physical dominance required." And mine said, "Dumb 1, severely limited capacity." She'd literally put these labels on our legal documents like they were real medical diagnoses. I printed copies and ran to Lana's office, not even grabbing my coat. She took one look and her face went white. "This is premeditated abuse documented from birth," she said, her voice tight. "I've never seen anything this clear in 20 years of practice." She immediately started making copies for our case file, declaring it the centerpiece of our permanent restraining order hearing. That same afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Eden using our old code. When I translated it, my stomach dropped. She'd fainted at the farmhouse, and Mom had to take her to urgent care. The doctor there noticed she was severely underweight and asked about eating habits. Mom, of course, told them Eden was just stressed because her troubled sister had abandoned the family and was making false accusations. Eden said the doctor looked suspicious but didn't push it with Mom right there. I texted Eden back, asking if she could get copies of those medical records. She was scared but said she'd try because Mom's treatment was getting worse every day. Mom was making her weigh herself 3 times daily now, cutting her food portions even smaller. The next morning, Detective Bridges called with unexpected news. A neighbor from near the farmhouse had seen news coverage about the investigation and contacted the police. This woman said she'd heard strange screaming from our property for years and noticed medical supply trucks making deliveries way too often for a normal family. She'd always wondered, but Mom had told everyone we were homeschooled, special needs children, who required constant medical care. Bridges was adding the neighbor's statement to the growing pile of evidence. Lana decided it was time to go after Dr. Benson, too. She filed a formal complaint with the state medical board. Even if he hadn't done anything yet, just planning such a procedure on a healthy person would violate every medical ethics standard. The medical board confirmed they'd open an investigation and subpoena his patient records. 3 days later, Lana called with bad news. Mom had filed for emergency guardianship over me, claiming I was profoundly impaired and a danger to myself without constant supervision. The court scheduled an evaluation for the following week. Lana fought hard and got them to agree to use an independent evaluator instead of the doctor Mom wanted. She coached me on what to expect, telling me to just be myself and answer honestly. The evaluation took place in a small office at the courthouse. The evaluator was a woman in her 50s, kind but thorough. I spent 3 hours answering questions, doing basic cognitive tests, explaining my education history, and describing the abuse. She had me solve math problems, read passages, and explain them, demonstrating that I understood abstract concepts. When I showed her my GED certificate and college acceptance letter, she looked shocked. Your mother claims you have the mental capacity of a young child, she said carefully. I then showed her the birth certificate with Mom's handwriting, labeling me as the dumb one from birth. The evaluator took detailed notes and said she'd need time to review all the evidence before making her recommendation to the court. Meanwhile, Leandra had been working on getting me mental health support. She connected me with a support group for survivors of family abuse that met weekly on campus. There was a huge waiting list for individual therapy, but at least the group gave me somewhere to talk to people who understood. The first meeting was hard, but hearing other people's stories made me feel less alone, less crazy. One woman had escaped a similar situation where her parents assigned her the role of family failure. That night, Miles texted me something that made me cry. He'd gone to a clinic and gotten x-rays of his joints. The images showed severe damage from being forced to lift heavy weights since he was 6 years old. His knees, shoulders, and spine all showed signs of repetitive stress injuries that would probably need surgery eventually. He said seeing the actual damage in black and white was finally breaking through years of Mom's programming. He was finally getting angry at what she'd done to his body in the name of making him the strong one. He was thinking about giving a statement to the police, but was still terrified about what would happen to Natalie if he turned against Mom completely. Detective Bridges called me 2 days later about trying to get a search warrant for Dr. Benson's office. She explained the process was moving slowly. Technically, he hadn't done anything illegal yet. Being threatened as a tool for Mom's plans wasn't enough for most judges to approve a warrant. She needed more evidence of actual intent or preparation for the procedure. I understood but felt frustrated that we couldn't just stop him before something bad happened. The whole legal system seemed designed to wait until after crimes happened instead of preventing them. That same afternoon, I got back to my dorm after meeting with Lana and found something weird. A folded piece of paper had been pushed under my door while I was gone. My hand shook as I opened it and read the words written in familiar handwriting. Dumb girls who run away get hurt. That was all it said. But I recognized Mom's distinctive way of forming her letters. I called campus security right away, and Officer Nash came to collect the note as evidence. Security spent hours reviewing camera footage, but whoever left it had avoided all the cameras. They knew exactly where the blind spots were, which meant they'd been watching me, planning. Nash increased patrols near my building and suggested I vary my routes to class. The next morning my backpack felt heavier than usual. I couldn't figure out why since I hadn't added any new books. I dumped everything out on my bed, checking all the pockets. That's when I found it, sewn into the lining at the bottom. Someone had cut open the fabric, inserted a small GPS tracker, and sewn it back up. The stitching was neat, almost invisible, but I could feel the hard plastic device inside. Detective Bridges came to collect it, saying she'd have it checked for fingerprints. She added stalking charges to the growing list of crimes we were building against Mom. The tracker looked expensive and had probably been transmitting my location for days. Later that week, I got some good news from the registrar's office. The university agreed to let me re-enroll provisionally for 2 classes while all the legal stuff got sorted out. It wasn't the full course load I wanted, but having some normal routine helped me feel more grounded. Taking Introduction to Psychology and English Composition proved I was capable of college work. My professors were understanding when Leandra explained my situation to them privately. They offered extensions when I had court dates or police meetings. Balancing the coursework with everything else quickly became overwhelming, though. Some days I'd go straight from a police interview to class to a meeting with Lana. My brain felt pulled in too many directions, and I struggled to focus on homework. The support group helped me manage the stress, but I still felt like I was drowning sometimes. 3 weeks after the evaluation, we finally got the decision about Mom's emergency guardianship petition. The evaluator's report was clear and direct about my complete competence. The judge denied Mom's petition and seemed genuinely concerned by all the evidence we'd presented. He scheduled a full hearing for a permanent restraining order and asked Detective Bridges to keep investigating. Mom didn't take the denial well, according to what I heard from my siblings. That night, Natalie sent me a scared text using our secret code. Mom had told her that if she testified against her, she'd destroy Natalie's hand so she could never write or type again. Natalie was thinking about running away, but didn't know where to go or how to survive on her own. She'd never been allowed to have a job or learn basic life skills. I immediately told Lana and Detective Bridges about the threat to Natalie. They connected us with a social worker named Justina Wilkerson, who specialized in helping abused victims escape safely. Justina started working with my siblings to plan safe exits when they were ready, giving them information about shelters and transportation resources through coded messages. The hard part was overcoming years of psychological control that made them afraid to leave. Mom had convinced them they couldn't survive without her, even while she destroyed them. 2 days later, I got a call that made me cry with relief and worry at the same time. Eden had finally escaped to a women's shelter after Mom discovered she'd been secretly talking to me. Mom had found Eden's hidden phone and started screaming about betrayal and breaking the ecosystem. Eden grabbed a bag of clothes and ran out while Mom was destroying the phone. She called me from the shelter, crying, but also sounding relieved for the first time in years. She said she couldn't take the forced starvation anymore and had finally chosen her life over Mom's approval. The shelter was keeping her location secret and helping her get medical attention for the damage from years of malnutrition. Within hours, Mom had called the police to report Eden as a kidnapped runaway. She claimed I'd brainwashed Eden and forced her to leave home against her will. Detective Bridges quickly confirmed with the shelter that Eden was an adult who had left voluntarily. The false report added another mark to the pattern of harassment and control Mom kept displaying. Bridges said every lie Mom told to authorities just made our case stronger. Mom was destroying her own credibility by making these desperate moves to regain control. Meanwhile, Eden was finally eating regular meals without someone monitoring every bite. She told me the shelter staff were shocked by how underweight she was for her height. They connected her with doctors who specialized in helping people recover from eating disorders. Eden said it felt weird to eat without guilt, but she was determined to get healthy. She wanted to be strong enough to testify about what Mom had done to all of us. Lana started putting together a civil harassment claim the next morning, based on all the online stuff Mom had been doing. Screenshots of posts claiming I was mentally ill and dangerous, documenting every fake account she'd made to spread lies about me, tracking down the original doxing post that had my dorm address. She spread papers across her desk, showing how Mom had posted on parent forums, saying I was a runaway with severe brain damage who needed to be returned home for medical care. She created fake missing person flyers with my photo, claiming I had the mental capacity of a 5-year-old, and even made a website called Help Bring Leia Home, full of made-up stories about my supposed disabilities. Lana explained that having both criminal and civil cases would create multiple ways to stop Mom's behavior, since different courts could issue different kinds of orders with different penalties. While she worked on that, Dr. Camera called with the hair analysis results, and I could hear the shock in her voice. The test showed I'd been exposed to sedatives consistently for at least 4 years, with levels that suggested someone had been deliberately drugging me, rather than giving me any kind of real medical treatment. The concentration patterns in different sections of my hair created a timeline, showing the drugging had started around when I turned 14 and continued right up until I escaped to college, with the highest levels during the past year when Mom must have increased the doses to keep me confused as I got older. Dr. Camera said she'd never seen anything like it outside of criminal poisoning cases, and was preparing a detailed report that would strengthen any criminal charges significantly. That same afternoon, a letter arrived from Dr. Benson's office, claiming they had no record of any planned procedures for me, and denying any discussions with my mother about medical interventions. But Lana noticed the careful wording that avoided actually saying he'd never talked to Mom about it at all. The letter kept using phrases like, no formal consultations, and no scheduled appointments. That sounded like legal protection rather than actual denial. And it mentioned their office's commitment to appropriate medical ethics 3 different times, which Lana said showed consciousness of guilt. Detective Bridges came up with an idea to get more evidence and had me call Dr. Benson's office while she recorded everything, coaching me to ask general questions about whether they ever did house calls or private procedures. Dr. Benson himself got on the phone, and while he didn't admit to anything specific about me, he mentioned that his practice sometimes handled difficult cases requiring discretion and private procedures for families with special circumstances, which Bridges said was enough to investigate his medical license and subpoena his records. 2 days later, Miles called me crying. He'd torn something in his knee during one of Mom's forced training sessions, where she'd made him carry 200 pounds up and down stairs for 3 hours straight. The doctor at urgent care said he needed surgery and would be on crutches for at least 2 months, which meant he physically couldn't do the crazy strength exercises Mom demanded anymore. He told me the injury was almost a relief because it gave him an excuse to stop being Mom's enforcer. While he figured out how to get away, though I could hear the pain in his voice, both from the physical injury and years of joint damage. Justina had been working with him to arrange transportation to a men's shelter whenever he was ready to leave, setting up a whole escape plan with a volunteer who would pick him up during one of his physical therapy appointments so Mom wouldn't know he was gone until hours later. But Miles kept hesitating because he was terrified about what Mom might do to Natalie if I and Eden were gone. He said he couldn't abandon our sister to face Mom's rage alone, even though staying was destroying his body. He'd been the enforcer for so long that the guilt of leaving Natalie unprotected was eating him alive. And Justina had to keep reminding him that he couldn't protect anyone if Mom completely destroyed his ability to walk. A week later, I was walking to class when I noticed someone in a big coat and sunglasses following me across campus. Even with the wig and different clothes, I recognized Mom's distinctive walk instantly, from years of watching for her mood changes. I texted Officer Nash immediately and kept walking toward the campus security office while Mom got closer, her hand reaching into her bag for something I couldn't see. Nash intercepted her right outside the library. When Mom tried to claim she was just a concerned parent checking on her daughter, Nash reminded her about the no trespass order and called for backup. Watching Nash put handcuffs on Mom while she screamed about her parental rights felt like something out of a dream after all the years of Mom having complete control over every aspect of our lives. Mom was charged with criminal trespass and violating a restraining order. The prosecutor said this arrest would help our case significantly, since it showed Mom couldn't respect legal boundaries. 3 weeks later, at the permanent restraining order hearing, the neighbor from near the farmhouse testified about hearing screaming at all hours and seeing medical supply trucks making deliveries that seemed excessive for a regular family. She described finding me once when I was 15, stumbling around confused in her yard because the pills Mom gave me had made me so dizzy I'd gotten lost, and how Mom had dragged me home, saying I was severely disabled and prone to wandering. Combined with all our other evidence, including the birth certificates with our assigned roles, the drugging evidence and Mom's repeated violations, the judge looked more and more disturbed as the hearing went on. He granted a 3-year restraining order with terms so strict that Mom couldn't contact us directly or through third parties, couldn't come within 500 feet of us, and couldn't post about us online. Mom's lawyer argued it was excessive for a mother trying to help her children, but the judge said the pattern of abuse and recent violations showed a serious ongoing threat that required maximum protection. Within days, Mom filed a defamation lawsuit, claiming I was lying about everything and destroying her reputation with false allegations of abuse, seeking damages for emotional distress, and demanding I publicly recant my delusions about being drugged and controlled. Lana just laughed when she saw the lawsuit and immediately started preparing an anti-slap motion to get it dismissed, explaining that this kind of retaliation was common from abusers trying to silence their victims through legal intimidation. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed when the judge ruled on Lana's anti-slap motion. I watched Mom's face turn red as he declared her lawsuit was clearly meant to silence me from speaking about my own abuse experiences. The judge ordered her to pay all my legal fees within 30 days, and warned that any future lawsuits would be seen as harassment. Mom's lawyer tried to argue this was about protecting a mother's reputation, but the judge wasn't buying it at all. Detective Bridges called me that same afternoon, saying she finally got approval for the search warrant based on everything we'd given her, plus the neighbor's testimony and some new information from other families who dealt with Dr. Benson. She warned me they'd be searching the farmhouse the next morning, looking for medical supplies, drugs that weren't prescribed to anyone, and any documentation of Mom's ecosystem system. She asked if there was anything specific they should look for. I told her about the filing cabinet in Mom's bedroom, where she kept all our development charts, tracking how well we stayed in our assigned roles, and the locked box under her bed where she stored the pills she made me take. The search team found way more than even I expected, including detailed notebooks dating back to our births, where Mom had written daily observations about how to keep us in our roles, bottles of prescription sedatives with no patient names, and 17 different tracking devices she'd been planning to use on us. They also found printed emails between Mom and Dr. Benson discussing cognitive adjustment procedures for problem children, and receipts for medical equipment that had no legitimate use in a regular home. The evidence room photos Detective Bridges showed me later made my stomach churn. Seeing it all laid out on tables with evidence tags, especially the syringes and vials Mom had been collecting for whatever she'd been planning next. Within hours of the search, Mom was arrested at her motel for assault, stalking, and child endangerment based on what they found. Detective Bridges said Dr. Benson was also under investigation after they discovered he'd been doing these special procedures on other families too. Mom's mugshot showed her still trying to look composed, but you could see the pure rage in her eyes that her perfect system was finally being exposed to everyone. Miles was brought in for questioning the next day about his role in bringing me back from campus, and I felt sick knowing he might get in trouble for something Mom forced him to do. The detective who interviewed him called me afterward, saying they weren't pressing charges because it was clear Miles was also a victim who'd been threatened and manipulated, which seemed to help him finally start accepting that what Mom did to all of us was abuse. Eden went to the police station that week to give a sworn statement about the diet pills and forced starvation, showing them photos from when she was at her thinnest and medical records from multiple fainting episodes Mom had ignored. Natalie sent in a written declaration with photos of her burned paintings and detailed descriptions of the punishments she got for showing any artistic talent, plus witness statements from 2 former neighbors who'd seen the smoke from Mom burning her art. Their courage in speaking up made the case so much stronger, and the prosecutor said having all 4 siblings confirming the abuse pattern made it nearly impossible for Mom to claim this was just one troubled child making things up. Mom posted bail 3 days later, and immediately started showing up at the courthouse during my hearings for the restraining order appeals. Standing exactly 500.1 feet away, which was technically outside the order, but clearly meant to scare me. Each time she appeared, campus security or court officers would document it with photos and measurements, building more evidence that she couldn't respect boundaries, even when facing serious criminal charges. The trauma started hitting me hard once the immediate danger passed. I found myself jumping whenever someone walked behind me, or unable to sleep because every sound made me think Mom had found a way around the restraining order. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. in full panic, thinking I heard her voice or smelled the medicine from those pills she used to force down my throat, even though logically I knew she couldn't get near me. Leandra helped me get on the waiting list for trauma therapy through the University Counseling Center, but they said it could be weeks before a spot opened up because so many students needed help. She also connected me with an online support group for family abuse survivors, which helped just knowing other people understood what it was like to be afraid of your own mother. Prosecutor Laurel Atkins called a meeting with me and Lana to discuss a plea deal he was considering offering Mom. She'd plead guilty to assault and stalking in exchange for dropping the more serious charges. He explained that trials are incredibly hard on victims, having to testify and relive everything in detail. This deal would guarantee she'd get probation with mandatory psychiatric treatment, plus a long-term no-contact order with all of us. The terms included 3 years probation where any violation would mean immediate jail time, mandatory therapy twice a week that she'd have to pay for herself, and a 10-year restraining order covering all 4 of us kids, with no exceptions for holidays or family events. I called my siblings that night, and we talked for hours about whether to support the plea deal. Miles said he just wanted it over. Eden worried Mom would find a way around any restrictions. Natalie thought the therapy might actually help Mom understand what she'd done to us. We finally agreed that our safety mattered more than seeing Mom get the maximum punishment, and that having a guaranteed outcome was better than risking a trial where something could go wrong. 2 days later, we all sent letters to the prosecutor saying we supported the plea deal, and Mom pleaded guilty in court to assault and stalking, while the judge made sure she understood she was agreeing to stay away from all of us for a decade. The news about Dr. Benson came through Detective Bridges. She called to tell me that after our case made the local news, 3 other families had contacted the medical board about him, suggesting weird treatments for their kids that weren't normal medical procedures. The board suspended his license right away while they investigated everything. Bridges said he'd probably never practice medicine again, which meant Mom had lost her main medical person, who would have actually done those horrible things she threatened. Eden texted me a week later that she'd found a small apartment just 2 blocks from campus using some money our grandmother had left us that Mom never knew about, and she was finally eating real meals again after years of being starved. She said her body was slowly remembering what normal felt like, and she'd gotten on the waiting list for eating disorder therapy at the Student Health Center, even though it might take months to get in. Miles sent me a text saying he'd started going to physical therapy for all the damage to his joints from being forced to lift weights since he was 6. The therapist was shocked at how bad everything was. He also wrote that he'd joined a support group for men who'd been abused, and he was sorry for helping Mom that day in my dorm room, even though he knew I probably couldn't forgive him yet. I appreciated him trying to make things right, even if I wasn't ready to fully trust him again after what happened. Natalie called me one afternoon to say she'd gotten a job at the art supply store downtown, and had started painting again in the back room during her breaks where nobody could see her. She wasn't ready to show anyone her work yet, because Mom burning her paintings still haunted her. But just holding a brush again made her feel more like herself. The financial aid office finally processed my dependency override after weeks of paperwork and meetings where I had to prove Mom shouldn't have control over my education anymore. They reinstated my full financial aid package and put permanent blocks on all my records so Mom could never access them again, which meant I could register for full-time classes next semester without worrying about her interfering. My siblings and I started texting each other using a mix of our old secret language and normal conversation. We all needed to stay connected, but also respect that we were all dealing with trauma differently. Eden was focusing on her physical recovery, Natalie was rebuilding her creative side, and Miles was working through his guilt. I finally got off the waiting list for therapy and met with a counselor who specialized in family trauma and control issues. She listened to my whole story without judgment and told me that what Mom did was severe psychological and physical abuse, not just strict parenting like Mom always claimed. That night after therapy, I actually slept through the whole night for the first time since escaping. No nightmares about Mom finding me or waking up in panic, thinking I heard her voice. The prosecutor called to tell me that at Mom's first probation check-in, the officer had to warn her because she tried to contact us through a cousin who'd called Eden, asking why we were being so cruel to our mother. The probation officer documented the violation and told Mom that any more attempts would mean immediate jail time, which made me feel like the system was actually protecting us for once. Eden, Natalie, and I decided to meet for coffee at a little shop near campus, which was the first time the three of us had been together without Mom controlling every word and action. We were all damaged in different ways, with Eden still too thin, Natalie's hand shaking slightly, and me still constantly checking over my shoulder. But we were learning what it meant to just exist as ourselves. Eden ordered a full meal without counting calories while Natalie doodled on napkins, and I talked about my classes without pretending to be stupid. We stayed for 3 hours just being normal sisters for the first time in our lives. No roles to play or punishments to fear. Walking to my morning English class the next week, I realized I wasn't checking behind me every few steps or planning escape routes in case Mom showed up. The sun felt warm on my face and other students were rushing past me, and I was just another college kid heading to learn something new. I sat in the front row and raised my hand to answer a question about the reading without worrying that being smart would get me hurt. The professor smiled when I gave my answer and said I'd made an excellent point, which would have earned me a beating at home, but here just meant I understood the material. After class, I walked to the library to study for my psychology exam without hunching my shoulders to look smaller or shuffling my feet to seem less capable. Other students were studying around me, and I pulled out my textbooks and highlighters like this was totally normal. Like I belonged here just as much as anyone else. The dumb one was taking college courses and making friends who knew me as just Leia, not as someone's assigned role in a sick family ecosystem. I had a future that Mom said I could never have. And even though we all had a long way to go in healing, we were finally free to become whoever we actually were, instead of who she decided we had to be. We were finally free.